Hello everyone, glad you can join me here again today. Today, we're going to be talking about the CNN town halls. We're going to be talking about Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and Andrew Yang, and reacting to that. We're also going to be talking about the upcoming debates and different candidate strategies in the upcoming debates. I'm really excited to talk to you about the debates. I think we're going to see some very interesting maneuvers happening in this upcoming debate. I'm not going to be talking too much about Tom Steyer's town hall because, to be honest with you, I didn't watch it, and I don't think anyone else did. If I should be paying attention to Tom Steyer, let me know in the comments below, but he's not really on my radar right now, so I'm not really going to be covering him. But first and foremost, Joe Biden came on first for the CNN town halls, and again, I don't talk too much about the substance of any one particular policy. I'm not diving into whether what they say is a good idea or a bad idea. I'm really talking more about the performance aspect of it, or the style or the campaign aspect of it, not so much the policies. And when I watch Joe Biden, either in a town hall or give a speech or any sort of arena where he has to talk, I really only have one thought the entire time that Joe Biden is talking, and that is Joe going to get through this one? Is he going to get through this question? Much less the campaign. Is he going to get through this question? Is he going to get through the whole hour? And it's a really tough watch for both Biden and for Warren, to be honest with you. And I'm a junkie. I like this stuff. I like watching the news. I default to the news whenever I come home and I turn the TV on. I have CNN, MSNBC, Fox. I think I have Fox on right now, actually. I like the news. I like watching this stuff. I like watching C-SPAN. But watching Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren, for that matter, it's a tough watch. And it's a really tough watch with Joe because the whole time I'm watching him, I just have this face on. I have this, oh, I don't know. Is he going to get through this one? Having him stutter through responses, and it never really seems like he's quite getting across what it is that he wants to get across, which is a departure from the traditional Joe Biden that people know and love. And that is a calm, cool, collected, kind of the fun uncle aspect to Joe Biden. It doesn't seem like he has that same persona anymore. And watching him, it's just really tough watching him for an entire hour because you just don't know if he's going to make another gaffe, if he's going to make another mistake. You really just don't know, and you're kind of sitting there just cringing a little bit. I don't know if I'm the only one. Tell me if I am, but when I'm watching him, I'm just thinking, I don't know. Is he going to get through this one? That's the only real comment I have on his town hall performance. Moving on to Elizabeth Warren, you have to hand it to Trump. Trump is really good at coming up with nicknames for people, and when it comes to Elizabeth Warren, she's pretty goofy. And I'm sure she's very smart, and a lot of people like her a lot, and people, I'm sure, think she has great ideas, and I'm sure that's all true. But when you watch Elizabeth Warren try to interact one-on-one with another normal human being, especially when she's trying to banter with the audience members, what a wild time that is. With Joe Biden, it's like, I don't know if he's going to make a mistake or not. With Elizabeth Warren, it's more of, wow, check, what was that movement? Check this out, because she's very fidgety. She's very quirky. She has these big, sudden movements, these unnatural laughs, and I know I'm not the only one that sees this, but it's a wild time watching Elizabeth Warren. And again, that style really clouds everything else that she's talking about, because that's the only thing that people are going to see. Visual persuasion is much more predominant in people's minds than anything that someone says. The visual aspect of campaigning, the visual aspect of a candidate is very important. And Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren have these fatal flaws with how they're campaigning. And that's really why I don't talk about them too much. It's because they have these flaws, these fatal flaws that are impossible to solve for. It would be very hard to get Joe Biden to act differently at this point. It'd be very hard to get Elizabeth Warren to act differently. And I'm not really even saying that they should. All I'm saying is that as an observer, watching Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren it's quite an interesting experience. And it set up the perfect contrast for Andrew Yang to come on after Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren. Because when he comes on, the power of contrast was so strong because suddenly it was almost like watching a normal, interesting guy up on stage. And I didn't quite realize how lucky Andrew Yang was after the Iowa mulligan. A mulligan is a do-over, in case you don't know. So after the Iowa mulligan, I was sitting there thinking, well, what is it that Andrew Yang can do in a week's time that's going to drastically change his potential outcome in New Hampshire? It's not going to be because of the ground game, although I'm sure that'll help. It's not going to be because of phone banking, although I'm sure that will help. But he needed some big event. He needed something, a big national TV media event, and he doesn't have the money for advertisements. So I was thinking he needs something that is going to be newsworthy and notable, something where a lot of people can see him at once. And I had completely forgotten that there was going to be not only a town hall, but an upcoming debate in his home state, effectively his home state, and in New Hampshire, a much smaller state. We talked about this in the last video. What a good break of fortune this is for Andrew Yang. By the way, before I go on, today we're wearing our Bell for Senate shirt. It was state Senate, not national Senate, and he didn't end up winning, but I like the shirt. So one thing, if you work on a campaign, normally you'll get a t-shirt from the campaign, and then if that candidate goes on to lose, it means you can wear the shirt and no one's going to get mad at you from any side of the aisle. If you wear the shirt of a losing party, the people from that party will be like, hey, that's a pretty cool shirt you got on there. I remember that guy. I campaigned for him too. And then if you're wearing the shirt and you talk to the other party, the opposing party, they really don't care that you're wearing the shirt because the guy lost. So he didn't have a chance to do anything negative in their mind. So that's just kind of a fun thing that I've noticed with campaign shirts. It's a comfortable shirt. Shout out to Bell. Anyway, with Andrew Yang, the town hall format is by far, I think, the best format to view him in. And not only that, but he's gotten a lot better at these things. You can tell he's been campaigning for quite a while now, and that he's done a few town halls, because the first few town halls, what did we talk about in the earlier videos? A lot of ums, a lot of uhs, a little bit of uncertainty with his responses. I'm noticing almost zero uhs and ums now. He's flowing a lot better. He's a lot more polished. He's much better at getting his thoughts across. And also with the town hall, they're not asking him too much about universal basic income anymore. It seems like everyone's past that now. And now they're really treating him almost like a real candidate by asking him about a bunch of different topics and a bunch of different areas of policy, which is good. Because you can't be a one-trick pony. You have to be able to answer and have convincing answers for all these different areas. Not that the viewer needs to agree with him on every single policy. Rather, they just need to know that he's thought this out, that he has some ideas, and that no matter what the area is, if he has convincing answers in enough areas, you just assume that he's thought about the rest. And so this is this is probably, I think, the best town hall for Andrew Yang yet. And I think CNN is going to be taking a much more serious look as a network at Andrew Yang, because he seems to be the one who is most interested in going after their number one competitor. And the number one competitor for the corporate news media is social media. So for Andrew Yang to strongly go after Facebook, I think that's something that CNN will be interested in. And just as a matter of pragmatics, it might be good to have the major news networks cover him like they cover the other candidates and not just write them off immediately. Maybe now they can view Andrew Yang as a candidate who has something for them as well. Just a little thing to look out for. But that's enough about the town halls. I want to talk about the debates, and this is what I was most excited to talk about. And I want to preface this with a little bit of Paul Grahamian knowledge, a little bit of knowledge from the startup world. Paul Graham is one of the top names. It might have been Michael Seibel that I saw talk about this, but one of them, they would both say the same thing, and that is, you know when a product has potential when the following thing is true. And the question you want to ask is, how much would people miss this product if it suddenly disappeared? How much would someone miss this service if suddenly you stopped existing as a company? And if the answer is people would be very disappointed, then you know that that product has potential. And when I look at what are the areas of opportunity in the upcoming debates, who could you peel voters off of? Not only bring new voters in, but who could you peel voters off of? And I look at the candidates and I think, who out of all of these candidates would people miss the least if they dropped out? Besides Tom Steyer, because it doesn't really count. Am I being mean to Tom Steyer? Let me know. I don't know. It doesn't really count, though. Not for this analogy. But out of all the candidates, who would people miss the least? And that is where your biggest opportunity is. And I think the biggest opportunity now, the wounded animal in the pack, so to speak, is Joe Biden. If Joe Biden suddenly drops out of the race, I don't think there's going to be too many people who are upset at that. Because if you're a Joe Biden supporter right now and he drops out, the feeling isn't quite the same as if, let's say, Andrew Yang dropped out. If Joe Biden drops out, it's a lot easier to say, well, yeah, you gave it a good run, Joe. I'm upset, but you wouldn't be upset at Joe. You'd be upset that he didn't do as good of a job as he could have, or you would be upset that he didn't come across like he did in the past, or that it didn't turn out like you thought it would. But it would be rather easy to go over to Elizabeth Warren or Pete Buttigieg or even Bernie Sanders. Probably not Bernie Sanders. If you're thinking Bernie Sanders, you're probably already there. But if you're with Joe Biden, it's probably pretty easy to move to a new candidate. Contrast that with Andrew Yang. If Andrew Yang dropped out, boy, would the effects be huge for the Yang gang. It would be as if your favorite TV show got canceled in the middle of a season. It would be one of the worst things that could happen in the entire election for people who support Andrew Yang. In fact, it would probably turn a good number of them off of politics entirely. It's just the same thing with Bernie Sanders. If Bernie Sanders just dropped out right now, there'd be a lot of upset people. Joe Biden doesn't have that same thing, which means that he's vulnerable to attack. It means that you have an opportunity that if you go after Joe Biden strongly, and let's say you end up taking him out, you might peel off a good majority of those supporters, and not just Andrew Yang, but any candidate. You might peel off a good amount of those supporters because they won't be too upset that he's out. In fact, I think a lot of people are kind of preparing themselves mentally for the race without Joe Biden. It just doesn't seem like he's going to hang on. And even if you looked at the Iowa caucus victory speech, Scott Adams talks about this a lot. A lot of his speeches have this theme of survival in it, and I think he mentioned something like, we're going to keep surviving to the very end of this thing. And so that's a subconscious tell, and Scott Adams talks about this a lot, but that's a subconscious tell that trying to survive is in Joe Biden's mind, just trying to make it through to the very end and survive and become the de facto nominee of sorts. Sort of like what Jeb Bush tried to do. He kind of reminds me a lot of Jeb Bush, where he was the presumptive nominee coming in, and he just kept getting beat up, and it turned out that it just wasn't for him this time around. So that's where the big opportunity for attack is. And I know there's a lot of people who are wary about Andrew Yang attacking another candidate, and attack is the wrong word. It's really not the right, because it seems aggressive. You don't have to be aggressive at all. But a debate is about why your ideas are better than someone else's. It's okay to say that someone else's ideas are bad. It would be completely okay for Andrew Yang to say, I'm sorry, Joe, I like you, Joe, but listen, it's a lot of your policies that got Donald Trump elected in the first place. A lot of the things that you missed are why we have Donald Trump right now. We can't have you running against Donald Trump. And here's why. And then he offers a better alternative going forward. Who would have a problem with that? That seems like a perfectly acceptable way to go forward. It seems like a perfectly normal way to go after a candidate, to just say why your ideas are better. That's what a debate is. That's what the debate's all about. And maybe Andrew Yang and Zach Grauman have more insight than I do, or they have a better idea than I do about how to handle the debates. But it's going to be, I think, rather frustrating for the Yang Gang if he treats this like other debates, where he sits there, maybe gets a question, and then sits there for another 30 minutes until someone decides to talk to him again. We're going to need to see a little bit more assertiveness in these debates going forward. At least I would like to see that, and I think that it would work. I don't think there would be any negative blowback going after Joe Biden. I think he's really, it's an opportunity. And if Andrew Yang doesn't do it, someone else is going to, because it's rather obvious. He's the person to go after and peel voters off of. I would expect Pete Buttigieg to do something similar to that. And I have one more thing that I want to say about the debates, but I'm going to have some water first. Shout out to Wawa. I always like to throw some unpaid brand promotion. Something fun. Anyway, there's one more thing that I'm going to be looking at for the debates coming up, and that is anyone going to try and Christie either Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, or maybe even Pete Buttigieg? And what I mean by Christieing someone is, if you remember in the we were in 2016, the 2016 Republican debates, I believe it was after Iowa or New Hampshire. I can't remember which one it was, but it was the debate after Marco Rubio had popped, and Christie was still in the race. There was a debate that started, and it was really one of the funnier moments of the debate. What a series of debates those were. But this one in particular, Christie comes out and almost immediately goes right after Marco Rubio just had a pop. And Christie just comes out of nowhere with this, and he goes very strongly after Marco Rubio. And that's when the infamous Rubio moment happened, where he came off with this line, and it went something like this. You'll probably remember it when I say it. It's, I want to dispel with this fiction that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's trying to make America like the rest of the world. And then he said it again. I want to dispel with this fiction that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's trying to make America like the rest of the world. And then he says it even a third time, and Christie says, there it is. There's the canned 30-second political speech. And he frazzled Marco Rubio into making this really forced error. And it's not the thing that killed the Rubio campaign, but it did put a ceiling on it. I don't think he grew past that point after that moment. And Christie didn't do that so that he could rise in the polls. Christie did that to gain favor with Trump, because it's a little bit different when Trump attacks someone, because Trump attacks everyone. So when he attacks, say, Marco Rubio, it doesn't move the needle so much. But when Christie goes after someone, he has a little bit more credibility than Trump when it comes to attacking, because it just plays differently. It's coming from someone else. It's one thing when one person keeps telling you the same thing over and over, But if they have their friend now also saying it, it adds a little bit more credibility, a little bit more weight to it. So Christie comes out, clobbers Marco Rubio, and the reason he did that was to garner favor with Trump and get a position in his campaign later on, and hopefully with the administration later in Christie's mind. He didn't end up getting a position in the administration, as far as I know. I think he was the transition manager or something like that. I don't think those two personalities could coexist for too long. But that's what Christie did. So I'm curious to see if anyone tries the same thing out with Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Because if you attack Bernie Sanders, your favorability and your popularity is going to go straight down. But you can probably get a good hit off on Sanders or Warren. Their core base is very strong. They have some diehards within their base, especially Sanders. But the core base isn't enough to bring them to the very end. If you are able to launch a hit off on Bernie Sanders, for instance, or Elizabeth Warren, you're going to go down, but it's going to make a lot more room at the top. So I'm curious to see if maybe an Amy Klobuchar or a Tom Steyer do that. And if you see Amy Klobuchar just launch into an attack on Bernie Sanders seemingly out of nowhere, or Elizabeth Warren seemingly out of nowhere, then I would suspect that some deal has been made at some point. Of course, Mike Bloomberg coming in kind of changes things, so we'll see how the debaters react to that new circumstance. But I don't know. This next debate is going to be interesting. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Forgot to say that last video, but if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. If you hated the video, then comment and tell me why. I'll take that too. But anyway, always love being with you guys, and I will see you all again sometime soon. All right, bye-bye.